The village of Xiaoling nestled in a valley surrounded by rice paddies. Old Hsiao, wrinkled like a prune, gathered the children. He told them stories of the ancestors, of spirits and demons. One tale stood out, the legend of the food monster. Never, he rasped, eat what you do not know, what you do not recognize. It could be the monster's doing. Elmark, a boy with eyes full of mischief, scoffed. Shekai, his best friend, always cautious, shivered. They knew Hsiao's stories held truth. The village relied on the land, on the harvest. To waste food was a sin. But what was this monster, and how could food be dangerous? The sun dipped below the mountains. Shadows stretched long and thin. Hsiao finished his tale. He warned them again, his voice a low murmur. Be careful what you eat. The monster is always hungry. Days turned into weeks. The harvest approached, promising bounty. One afternoon, Elmark wandered the fields. The air hung heavy, thick with the smell of ripening rice. He spotted something unusual tucked beneath a broad leaf. It pulsed faintly, a sickly green lump. Elmark poked it cautiously. It wobbled, emitting a soft hiss. He remembered Hsiao's warning. His stomach grumbled. Curiosity, always his downfall, overwhelmed him. He picked it up. It felt strangely warm, almost alive in his hand. He took a bite. The taste was unlike anything he'd known. Sweet and sour, it sent a shiver down his spine. He devoured the rest, licking his fingers clean. A strange energy coursed through him. He felt different, changed. He laughed, a giddy sound that echoed across the empty fields. He didn't know it yet, but he'd just awakened a sleeping giant. The next morning, Shekai found Elmark by the riverbank. He was different. His skin shimmered, a faint green tinge replacing his usual healthy glow. His eyes, normally bright and playful, held a strange hunger.
Elmark, she whispered, fear clutching at her throat. What's wrong?
He turned. A slow, deliberate movement. His smile sent chills down her spine.
Wrong. Nothing's wrong. I feel better than ever.
He lunged at a passing frog, his tongue shooting out with unnatural speed. He swallowed it whole, a satisfied grin spreading across his face. Shekai ran. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs screamed for mercy. She burst into the village square, gasping for breath.
The monster, she cried. It's real. Elmark, the food.
Her words tumbled out in a jumbled mess. The villagers gathered around, their faces etched with concern. Hsiao listened intently, his old eyes filled with a terrible knowing. Hsiao stepped forward, his voice trembling with age but strong with conviction. The food monster feeds on waste, he explained, his gaze sweeping over the concerned faces. Every scrap, every crumb, every grain left uneaten strengthens it. It can corrupt, twist and take on many forms. His voice dropped to a whisper. It seems Elmark has become its vessel. Fear gripped the village. The food monster, once a legend whispered around flickering oil lamps, was now a terrifying reality. Hsiao recounted the ancient stories. The monster, born from carelessness and disrespect for food, grew stronger with each wasted morsel. It could lie dormant for years, only to awaken when negligence reached its peak. Panic threatened to engulf them, but Hsiao, drawing on the wisdom of generations, raised his hand. There is still hope, he declared. The monster thrives on waste. If we starve it, deny it sustenance, we can weaken its hold on Elmark. We can defeat it. The villagers dispersed, their faces pale, their movements hurried. The reality of the situation sunk in with chilling clarity. The food monster wasn't a distant myth. It was a living, breathing threat. It had taken Elmark, a mischievous boy who loved to laugh, and twisted him into something unrecognizable. A wave of fear washed over Xiaoling. Mothers clutched their children close, whispering reassurances they barely believed themselves. Farmers, their faces etched with worry, inspected their crops, their livelihoods with renewed scrutiny. The air, once filled with the cheerful sounds of village life, grew thick with unease. Hsiao watched the village descend into chaos, his heart heavy with a grief he knew all too well. He had seen the devastation wrought by the food monster before. He knew the importance of unity, of discipline in the face of such a threat. "We must stand together," he murmured, his voice hoarse with urgency. "Our survival depends on it." News of the strange sickness plaguing Xiaoling reached the ears of the regional governor. Concerned, he dispatched a contingent of soldiers and physicians to investigate. The village, once a picture of rural tranquility, was now eerily silent, the streets deserted. The soldiers fanned out, their faces grim, their hands resting on the hilts of their swords. The governor's representative, a stern woman with piercing eyes, addressed the villagers.
"We have been sent to contain this affliction," she announced, her voice echoing in the hushed square. "Until we understand its nature, Xiaoling is under quarantine. No one enters, no one leaves."
Fear mingled with a strange sense of relief. The quarantine, while restrictive, offered a glimmer of hope. The presence of the soldiers brought a sense of security, a feeling that they weren't alone in this fight. The villagers, their faces drawn but resolute, nodded in unison. They understood the gravity of the situation. They were ready to fight for their survival, for Elmark, for their village. Under the watchful eyes of the soldiers, village life shifted. Every grain of rice, every vegetable, every scrap of food was treated with reverence. Meals, once a time for casual conversation and laughter, became solemn affairs. Not a single morsel was left uneaten. Composting, once a common practice, was now a sacred duty. Hisao, his wrinkled face etched with worry but his spirit unbroken, became the villagers' guide. He taught them the ancient ways, the rituals designed to appease the spirits of food and restore balance to the natural order. The villagers, united in their fear and their determination, listened attentively, their hearts filled with a newfound respect for the sustenance they had once taken for granted. Evenings were spent in the village square, sharing stories, offering comfort, and drawing strength from their shared heritage. The quarantine, initially a source of fear, became a catalyst for unity, a testament to the enduring spirit of a community facing an unprecedented threat. They were determined to starve the monster, to reclaim their village, and to save Elmark from the clutches of the food monster. Days bled into weeks. The quarantine held strong. The soldiers patrolled the perimeter, their presence a constant reminder of the invisible enemy lurking just beyond the village borders. Inside the cordon, a strange tranquility settled. The air, once thick with fear, now hummed with a quiet determination. The effects were undeniable. The pulsating green glow that had enveloped Elmark began to fade. His movements, once jerky and unnatural, regained a semblance of normalcy. The hunger in his eyes flickered, replaced by a growing confusion, a glimmer of the boy he once was. The food monster, starved of sustenance, was weakening. The villagers, witnessing Elmark's gradual transformation, clung to hope. Their sacrifices, their unwavering commitment to eliminating waste, were yielding results. The monster, they realized, was not invincible. It could be defeated. One morning, a collective gasp rippled through Xiaoling. The sky, usually a vibrant blue, was now choked with a putrid green fog. The stench of rotting food, overpowering and nauseating, filled the air. The food monster, weakened but desperate, was making a last stand. The villagers huddled together, their faces pale but resolute. They had come too far to falter now. Hisao, his voice trembling but strong, addressed the frightened crowd.
This is our final test. We must not waver. Our unity, our respect for food is our greatest weapon.
As if summoned by their collective will, the fog parted. In the center of the village, a grotesque figure writhed in agony. The food monster, a monstrous amalgamation of discarded scraps and forgotten meals, pulsed weakly. Its form, once imposing and terrifying, now appeared shrunken, defeated. With a final agonizing groan, the monster dissolved into dust, leaving behind only a faint, lingering stench as a reminder of its reign. Elmark, free from the monster's grasp, collapsed to his knees, his body racked with tremors. He looked around, his eyes filled with confusion and shame. The quarantine was lifted. Life in Xiaoling slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. The villagers, forever marked by their encounter with the food monster, emerged with a newfound appreciation for the preciousness of food. Elmark, haunted by his transformation, became a staunch advocate against waste, his experience serving as a stark reminder of the consequences of their actions. The legend of the food monster, once a tale whispered in hushed tones, became an integral part of the village's history, a cautionary tale passed down through generations. It served as a constant reminder of the delicate balance between humanity and nature, of the importance of respect, gratitude, and the consequences of taking their sustenance for granted. The ordeal had tested their resilience, their unity, and their spirit, but in the end they had emerged victorious, not through might or magic, but through a shared commitment to a simple yet profound truth. Every morsel of food deserved respect, for it was not just sustenance, but a gift from the earth, a symbol of their interconnectedness with the natural world.